Obviously,
Well, it's a small group tonight, it looks like.
Yeah, very
apparently.
small.
That's
Yeah.
bizarre. I don't think we've had a webinar where we have one client show, but we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Thanks.
me too.
Yeah, it looks like we have another one. I was gonna say, if I'm the only one, you can cancel it. I don't want to take it this evening. It's a holiday.
No, we'll have fun anyway. We'll yell at you and talk at you. It's fun. We love this stuff. Yeah.
I would be on video, but I'm gonna eat my dinner while I'm watching and listening to your expertise.
Oh, that's okay. We would be jealous. We'd be very distracted by the yumminess. Well, thanks for coming in. And Nick, we see you here as well. Thanks for joining. I might wait one more minute here. I know we're after the hour. I'm former military, so I don't like to wait too long, but we do sometimes have traffic and all that kind of stuff hit us, for sure. Emery, do you have any announcements or anything that we need to get out there before we begin?
No announcements right now.
Okay, gotcha.
Can't believe
Well,
it's the middle of January. I mean, the year already. This month has just flown.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that, you know, we're going to blink an eye, it'll be spring break, and then we're going to blink another eye and it'll be, you know, June, and we'll be into applications and essays and all that craziness again. So
I just can't even believe that we're talking about that already. It feels like we haven't even finished it yet.
I know.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
So
Anyway,
much fun though. Lots of our kids are getting notifications.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a fun time.
A lot of
Well,
stuff
gang,
happening.
I'm going to go ahead and get going. I see we have another couple folks joining in. That's great. First off, I would like to say thanks for coming in tonight to our client webinar. We do one of these every month on a different topic. It's designed primarily to get information out there, to be brief, and then to be able to step back and answer questions about the topic or anything else that you guys want to chat with us about. You know, it's common for us to have one or two meetings with parents during the appointment cycle. And I know that sometimes parents like to interact with us more than that, and that's great. And this is a great forum for that. My name is Mike Davila. If we haven't had a chance to talk, I'm one of the partners of College Inroads, and I'm joined with tonight by Anne-Marie Hatfield, the other partner here at College Inroads. And we're really glad that you're on board, number one, but we're also excited to bring you some more information. Tonight's section is going to be talking about the career search. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't do a whole lot of work around this when I was in high school. You know, I'll tell you a bit about my story as we go through, but how about you, Emery? Did you do a lot of, you know, deep diving into perhaps what you'd want to do when you grow up?
I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I had no idea what to major in.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was either going to be a doctor or an officer in the Navy, and that was it. You know, those. So no scrubs, no military uniform. So yeah, you see how that worked out. Anyway, all fun. So why is this stuff important? First and foremost, we want students to be really happy with their work lives and their career choice. I know as parents, you guys want exactly the same thing. And through the years of doing this work, I've talked to, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of parents. And I do run into people every day saying, you know what, I hate my job. I wish, by the way, Mike, can I take your assessments too? Because I'd really like to change path. My brother called me, you know, and he's been in his career for forever. And just now he's able to repurpose and get like a slightly different job title so he can be more happy. So that is the core of why we even do this stuff up front. And true, it's financially a deal in this day and age for us to go off to college, perhaps without a whole lot of direction or a lot of thought into the particular major. So we get it, parents. We know that you guys are investing an awful lot of hard-earned money in your students' education. So we're very sensitive to that. And thirdly, you know, like in my case, I had two career possibilities on my mind. There are thousands of career possibilities out there. So we want to scope in on some of those to make sure that a great fit. So parents, how did you guys choose a major or career? Here are some of the likely, you know, things I've heard before. I look good on TV. My dad did it. I didn't. It just happened one day when my advisor asked me what major I was pursuing, and I had to put something on the piece of paper to register for classes for my sophomore year or whatever. My teacher or high school counselor recommended a career in computing or engineering or whatever. I went to a majors fair on campus and I liked what the professor had to say. That was kind of me when I was in college. Emery, did you ever do a career fair or a majors fair at college?
I did, and it didn't necessarily help me, but this brings to mind my sister-in-law, who was a physics major and then took an archaeology class and completely changed her life because now she's a PhD archaeologist. And it was that one professor who she really loved that legit changed her life.
Absolutely. So it happens. I knew I was bad at math or bad at writing or whatever, so I just completely avoided everything that would touch that discipline. How about this one? I wanted to make the maximum salary possible. I distinctly remember when I was 17, it's like, I want to make a lot of money and I want to have a job that's prestigious. I think those were my two driving. There's the next one. Prestigious, to be a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, or whatever it may be. How about this one? It was always my passion. I researched it, I interned, I job shadowed it. I had a really great job growth potential. It had fit my personality, I was good at it. Does that ever happen? Yeah, nah, I don't really hear that too often, but that's kind of the holy grail, right? We would love for every student to say that as their reason for why choosing their potential career or whatever. So before we go deeper, let's look at some facts. These are provided by the National Center for Education Statistics. Okay, so nearly a third of all undergraduates change their major. That even may be low, but a third, that are being reported into NCS are changing their major. 10% of students will change it twice or more. So just think about that. 10% of the students out there are changing major twice. What does that do to your career or your major's progression? How many extra classes are you having to take? How many more years are you having to spend in college? And then what's that opportunity cost in your retirement when you were not earning that first year? It's kind of staggering when you start to think of it that way. Only 41% of all undergraduates across the nation will graduate within 4 years. Now, granted, there are some schools that will do a really great job with making sure that students are on track and will graduate in 4 years. One of the links that is in your students portal on the left-hand side of the college page actually is collegeresults.org. Will actually lay out 4, 5, and 6 year graduation rates for each school and retention ratios. So there's a little pro tip for you. It means 60% of students are not finishing in 4 years, so that's pretty staggering. The average student will take 4.4 years to finish, so we might be overspending $20,000 or more on an undergraduate education if we spend another semester or more in college. So I just figured I'd give you some of those stats, because they're a little eye-opening, and most of us don't like to think of these things as we're in the college planning process, because we want to think about, hey, which colleges we're going to go tour. What's the scene look like on campus? And those are all fun things and those are legitimate. But we also need to look at these facts too. This one I think was the most troubling of all, where Gallup went and polled recent graduates and said, yeah, again, more than a third would change their major if they could go back and do it. So a third of students are saying, nah, I chose incorrectly. Okay, so all that said, what do we need to do? All right, so let's look at the end in mind. Industry winners. Parents are always asking me, like, where should we be looking, for potential careers? And we're always saying, look, we need to find the right fit. But if you want to just look at winners and losers, this is from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Family services, like social work, counseling, that is huge. And I see this show up quite a bit on people's, U Science results specifically. Mining sport, whatever, home healthcare, computer systems, that's a big winner. I mean, healthcare practitioners, being doctors, nurses, orthopedists, people in the healthcare industry, we all know that that is growing. Software development, metal mining, which I've never had anyone want to pursue, food manufacturing, repair and maintenance. On the fastest decline, these are mostly ones we're never going to see, because most of these do not require college degrees. But it's kind of interesting to look and see coal mining. Okay, great. So really interesting to see a lot of, again, psychology, healthcare, software. Those are some of the big winners right now. Okay, so what about people saying, well, engineering is the right fit. STEM is the way to go. No one ever transfers out of STEM because that's the right path. Well, I started looking around and doing some research on this. This is kind of fascinating as well. When you look overall, total STEM majors, 35% will transfer out of STEM, whereas only 29% will transfer out of humanities. And this is a kind of a breakdown for all the disciplines within STEM or non-STEM, maybe not all of them, but many of them. So mathematics is the biggest culprit. A lot of people will go into math, more than half, and change into something else. Natural sciences, this is interesting, and I attribute this mainly to the rigor, and also for people who go pre-med. Oftentimes they're doing biology, biochemistry, stuff like that as the major, and sometimes they transfer out of that if it doesn't look feasible for them to go into that professional field afterwards. Engineering, 32%, that's difficult. It's a difficult field, we know that. And then here's computer information, then all the humanities. So anyway, I just wanted you to have a little bit of extra data, knowing that, yeah, just because you're choosing STEM doesn't always mean that we stick in STEM. So what's a good strategy to employ? What do we need to do if we're parents? How can we support our students to make a really legitimately analyzed decision? So the first thing I like to do is what we do with all your students, which is look at personality type. Think about innate defining personal characteristics. I think of this as the foundation on which to build a decision on which career to go into. And that's through the personality assessment in the Inroads portal. This is a self-designed, self-reported type of assessment. So your student could legitimately go in and steer this thing and say, hey, I want to go into medical, stuff. Okay, they can do that. Yeah, I don't see students really trying to do that in terms of a conscious thing, but I want you to know that is something that is a criticism of self-generated assessments and things of that nature. This is an adaptation of what's called the Myers-Briggs type indicator test. Many of you as parents have seen this. There's 16 total types. There's not a better one or worse one out there. They all have strengths and they all have blind spots. I would say out of doing hundreds, if not thousands of these over the years, I've only had one or two come back that was rated really poorly, where students said, no, this is a crappy fit. This was not who I am. Oftentimes, I would say 75, 85% of the time, it's like, this is really a good assessment for who I am. And then maybe 15% of the time, it's kind of iffy. So we all have a set of personality traits like ESFJ. And what does that mean for each of us? Well, in the portal, it actually lists very specifically the blind spots and the strengths when looking at various aspects of life, whether it's education or the workplace. And we assign the student homework. You need to go into those and see how those really affect you. Some of them may affect you greatly, some not. But that's really, I think, great because you get a ton of self-awareness out of it. And yes, it does give careers. It does help us see for just the baseline personality where we might fit the best. So I don't tell people this often, but your job can also influence your personality. And this happened to me. I was in the military for 10.5 years. The last day on active duty, I took the Myers-Briggs type indicator test. I turned out to be an ESTJ. Don't expect you to know what that means. It's a prototypical police officer, leader, military officer, that sort of thing. Well, about 5 years later, as I was getting into this field, I retook the Myers-Briggs type indicator test, and I turned out to be an ENFJ, completely different, a counseling type. That is far more true for who I am. I feel like it's a great fit for me. So under stress, under duress, you might end up having some weird results. For a student who's hopefully not under that much crazy pressure like the military, my hope is that those results will be good for a long time. Okay, the second layer, what to do next? Well, do what you like to do, okay? What do you like in life? And that is within you science, okay? So that was the 1.5 hour long assessment that your student did. There is no way to steer those results. that is like taking an SAT or ACT. You either get the right answers or not. There's no cheating on it at all. So I love this model. I love looking at interests. We're going to look at these a little bit further, but John Holland was a kind of an organizational psychologist, I guess, back in the 1950s and 60s, who did a ton of research into the workplace. And his theory was that everyone who likes certain things kind of falls within these 6 areas, and that's called the REASEC model: realistic, artistic, investigative, social, enterprising, conventional. And we'll look at those specifically in a bit. Everyone who takes the assessment has the top 3 variables identified, like RCA or IEC, SIE. It means nothing to you, but it does help us understand where our interests really lie, because you don't want to do a job that you're just not interested in. And then lastly, at the top of that pyramid, we look at aptitudes, and that's what you're good at, because you don't want to go to a job that you like, but just don't have any natural ability at, because going to work every day is going to be very challenging if you're in that environment. So that's also within U Science assessment. And when you combine those things, it gives us a unique set of characteristics that matches careers. And that's the little line plots that you see within U Science. It's very scientific. I mean, just like the title actually alludes to. And I love it because it's far greater than anything we ever had as students when we were back in the day. So yeah, this is a very basic model that just kind of outlines what we're talking about just a minute ago. Aptitudes and interests mapped on the X and Y axis. We really want to be up here, where we find a career that we're really good at and they really have a deep interest in. It's going to be easier to work. It's going to be fun spending time focusing on the detail work that has to be done to do that job really well. What we don't want to do is end up in a career where our aptitude is low and our interest is low. I mean, this is terrible, but most of us as parents probably know people, or we ourselves may be in one of these other areas where we have a real high aptitude for it, but kind of a low interest. I found that kind of for me in the military. I was really good as a naval officer. I had lots of personal awards and decorations and all that stuff. But after a while, I just wasn't interested in it anymore. It just didn't fit me. Or you could end up in a position where you have kind of low aptitude, but you have high interest. That also, you're going to be struggling on a day-to-day to kind of keep up with your peers. So anyway, this basic model, we want to be in this upper right quadrant with our career. And then this is the Holland REASEC model I mentioned before: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. And you can kind of see people who are highly realistic, for example, are hands-on folks. They often like to work outdoors. They often build stuff. A lot of times people who are engineers end up with realistic and investigative as their top 2. Whereas people who might end up in, a career like medicine are in the social and investigative category. So you can kind of see different careers kind of lend themselves to these different quadrants really well. And that, again, U Science does a fantastic job of mapping these REASEC quadrants to your student and into careers. So then we needed to ask questions and to take action after we've done all this stuff. Okay, is the job going to pay? If we're good at it, if it's a great fit, all those good things we're checking the box there. It's hard for students sometimes to understand what type of earnings they're going to need to live the same type of standard of living or better than what they have now, especially with students who are very affluent. So I think it's important to look and see, is the job actually going to fit the bill for the student later on? Is the job going to be around in 10 years? That's another big question. And so the assessments that we give you information on both of those items here. And then what can I learn about the career prior to going to college? That's a really good question. So are there associations that are interesting to me that I could join as a student in college? For example, ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers. That's an example of one of those associations that, yes, you can definitely join as a student when you're in college. You can investigate the website as a student. Oftentimes, students can also do informational interviewing prior to going to college or, applying to school. So, just think about it. Who's in my social network who could help us here? And you'll be surprised how many people are definitely willing to sit down with their student and talk to them about their job. I just had a student who's actually a college student who's looking to transfer, and I was bringing this point to him this afternoon. Who can he interview at his college that's in the film division who can help him, gain more knowledge about the film industry that he wants to pursue? Then job shadowing, for sure. There's lots of students who will be able to spend a few days shadowing a physician or shadowing an architect or whatnot. And then also college professors are usually very excited to speak with students, especially high school students, about their careers. So if you don't have lots of professional networking possibilities, know that, as schools open, to do college tours, many times you can sneak in and talk with a college professor as well. And then finally, local internships. This is where kind of the rubber hits the road with students' resumes. And I know it's January, but it's not too early to start thinking about, wow, is there an internship my student might be able to do this summer, or a summer enrichment program? You probably saw the blastogram we just sent out. Lori on our staff did a ton of research into not local internships, but summer enrichment programs for students to dig further into what's a medical career actually look like, things like that. And then how else can I use these new insights that I gained from these assessments that we're putting your kiddos through? Well, tactically, they can definitely look at those strengths and blind spots and employ them at work, school, socially. Again, that's within U-Science and also within the personality assessment. And then strategically, the describing you section in that first giant paragraph within the personality assessment, those keywords, the descriptive words, I like to go back to as we start to build the resume and start to work with your student on their essays. Because, for example, if it looks like the student's super resilient, as one of the things that's within science, then definitely we want to find examples of that resilience, because that's what colleges want, those personality traits to come forward in the college application. What if I can't decide on a major? I talked to a student this afternoon. We did some interview prep. She's about to go over to Southwestern University and do an interview. She's like, I can't choose between art history and psychology. Okay, it happens. Don't panic. Many students go to college without committing to a major. Most liberal arts colleges are not going to allow you to declare a major into the second year anyway. But like 20 to 50% of college students will go to research colleges undeclared, and that's okay. The key is to find the right building on campus and build skills that are going to be flexible across career areas. So look at the diagnostics, listen to your gut and intuition. Is it going to be STEM? Is it creative writing? Is it going to be sports management? Those sorts of things. Talk to teachers, talk to professors, talk to students within the major. Look at the work you've already done. What was easiest? What was most satisfying to you in high school? And then you could also choose to speak with an academic advisor at the college within the department and see what they have to say. So lots of different ways to kind of crack this, but it is okay if you decide, hey, I don't want to choose a major right now, that's fine. I don't want people to push a button on a major just because they feel like someone's telling them, like me or Anne-Marie or somebody else. It's important that they actually marinate in this information and make a good choice for themselves. Okay, Mike, we know that you have good assessments. We believe in those, but what else is out there? So this whole thing will be available to you on your students portal, but here's 6 or 7 websites that are phenomenal. These are external, they're free. They will also give your students additional information. We don't make students do these, but this is definitely something that they can pursue if they feel like what they have from us is not quite yet hitting home. And for example, this is Arizona State University has this really cool picture-based survey. It takes probably 30 to 40 seconds to get through. It doesn't take long, but it will spit out some potential careers just based on the visual descriptions of various jobs. Pretty fascinating. So key takeaways. You have lots of resources at your disposal. There's lots of time left to discuss and explore potential careers and majors. We've talked about cost control tonight a little bit, but it's far more about life after college. Yes, we want students to be happier, more productive, have a better outlook on life, more growth in their potential career field and a better quality of life, and then finally better earnings that follow from that. So if you're a junior family right now, what do we need to be doing? Yes, definitely doing some major and career investigation. College search, visitation, that's on most people's radars about now. looking at the March SAT or the April ACT. A lot of people are starting to do some planning around when to take those tests. I'm always dropping hints, especially demonstrating interest in your top choice colleges. Yeah, it's a deal. Lots of schools, especially private institutions, will track whether or not your student's legitimately interested in them. They'll do things like, send your student an email and have, look and see, does the student click on the links and stuff like that out of that. So they data mine all that and will make some choices and some educated decisions as to whether or not your student's really interested and sometimes it actually influences a little bit the admit decision. Creating and revising the student resume. I know students at the very beginning of our process are working on that. And then finishing this semester strong academically, because this is the 6th semester. It is the final transcript that every college is going to want to see as we do early action or early decision admissions in the fall. So yes, definitely we want to make sure that we put our best forward here. And questiones, I guess we're at that stage. I've talked a lot here. I blew a lot of hot air at you guys. So I apologize about that. And if you like, you can unmute, you could text in a question. Amory and I are looking to answer anything that has to do with career stuff, majors, and anything else that you would like to bring to the table beyond that.
So feel free to unmute, or you can utilize the chat function in Zoom. So if you have questions.
Mike, I thought this was really helpful to kind of go back. We had our career planning meeting, or whatever it's called, career search meeting back in November after he did those tests, but it just seemed like there were way too many options as far as like what jobs were, and to kind of nail down where you're going or as far as major. So I was wondering, they have a lot of stuff right now to do as juniors. Mm-hmm. Working on the resume takes a lot of time.
Yes.
And preparing for the standardized testing. So I was just wondering, priority wise, what's the priority right now if you're a junior?
Got it. So if it were between doing a resume, standardized test prep, all these things, it's different for every student. I have to say that, Sherry. Some students are going to be great test takers, and that's not going to be a big issue. Some people already have their test results back, and they're happy with what they have. Other students who are not super strong standardized test takers will take the March or April test and just be like, okay, it is what it is. Most colleges, I think, for this next cycle are still going to be test optional. That's just my student sense. So yeah, I put some emphasis on the standardized testing for sure. The resume, I think, is important, but not in the fact that it's like, okay, we need to generate it. I've had plenty of students come in late to the process and they can get they can actually do the template. That's not the issue. The issue is pursuing the activities that go on that. And that is, that is utterly time intensive. So for me, if I have to really commit, this would be my baseline, Sherry. The first and foremost thing a student has to do is perform academically, okay? Forget the extracurriculars, forget all the testing. If we don't do well this semester and show an upward trend in terms of grades and score well on AP, classes and things like that, we're trying to get into more selective schools. That is the bedrock, is that transcript, okay? So that would be the number one priority in my mind. Secondly, I would have to say, because so many test optional schools exist, I think I want to put some emphasis on the SAT, ACT stuff, but the next thing I'm going to really be thinking about is the resume, because yes, we need to have service. Yes, we need to have leadership. There's so much more pressure on these poor kids than when we were going into college, to get all this stuff done. It's crazy. It is literally insanity. So I would probably spend some time there and focus on that, okay? The third thing I would say are the essays. And we're not touching that yet. I mean, that stuff will come at the end of this semester when we start brainstorming the essays. So the bedrock for most selective college admissions is going to be the transcript, the resume, and then the essays. Those three things to me are the most important aspects, whether it's Harvard or XYZ, Timbuktu. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I was thinking, one of the other questions I had is with regard to the resume. Like you were saying, it's important to get those activities done so that you have them on the resume or start them or whatever it might be.
Right on.
Because with COVID, it's so difficult right now. And have you seen any trend for colleges to start looking at things that, like we were working on the resume and putting together some things that happened before ninth grade started, even though I think in past years, colleges wouldn't have looked at that.
Mhm.
But I wanted to show like a pattern of heavy community service, but then now that once COVID hit, there was nothing that we could, I mean, it just couldn't happen. I mean, things were getting
Oh, yeah.
left and right. So I'd like your thoughts on whether that is impacting what they consider on the resume.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that you've hit it on the head. I do agree that if we have something that forms a trend, then absolutely go back into the middle school years for the resume. Emery, do you have any thoughts on that for the application part of it itself?
Yeah, I don't think I would put that on the application, anything prior to the ninth grade. I mean, if it's the summer before ninth grade, then I would absolutely put that on there. But on the college applications, almost every college is going to have a place for you to talk about COVID, or the kids to talk about COVID if it's affected their family, or if they've been sick, or that's a great place to talk about how they weren't able to participate as fully in some of these activities like community service because there weren't that many opportunities to do so. So I think that colleges are going to give and have given kids love and grace because of the big C, COVID, if you will. But I don't know that I would go too far,
On the app, yeah, on the applications
on the
themselves.
application.
Yeah.
On the resume, I think
Resume.
it's completely appropriate, because then, especially since a lot of colleges will ask for, or you can submit a resume, but to see that depth of experience going back to 6th or 7th grade, I think it's informative. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're struggling a little bit on the resume of, and I know this is the career search meeting, right? But on the resume, since we're talking about that, that's, kind of important as far as priority wise, that putting the grade that they did all of these things. And I had thought about just not putting the grade for some of the things because they were potentially before high school started. And so I don't know how important that is on resumes.
The resume is what you make it. I've had people take the content of the template we have and pretty it up and put it on a really cool, slide type of background and stuff. If you want to delete it, no one's going to ever fault you for it, Sherry. It's okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Other questions?
It's a really good conversation.
I wish we had time. We could do like every week. That'd be fun.
No.
Do you guys know what the topic will be for next month?
Do you have the schedule there, Emery? I don't have
Yeah,
it.
I do. I can pull it up and look at it. We try to kind of follow the calendar based on what's happening. I think next month is the resume. Shocking.
Amazing.
So
Awesome.
I can go nice in depth about the resume next month.
Yeah.
And then,
And then-
the month after that is going to be maybe essays.
Okay. And is March usually when they start working on the essays? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, last year we started students at the end of February. It was too early. So we're going to start in March working with students on some essays. They're not, the problem here, Sherry, is that the Common App, Texas Common and Coalition app, they don't often change their prompts, but the supplements change all the time. For UT, A&M, Texas Christian, they have lots of different prompts. So we can work on last year's prompts early, but the problem is that they may change with the supplements. So we like to do like 4 or 5 essays throughout the spring semester to have them start on those, critique them, get them back into the students' hands so that when they roll into summer, they're not behind the 8 ball. They already got a bunch of writing behind them. They can morph and tweak whatever they have, for typical questions for the supplements. And then they should definitely have a core app essay done, kind of running into summer, the first month or so. And I say that because we will have some clients that scream into our system at the last minute in like May, and they're not going to have their essays done until probably September. So anyway, it varies for every student. Your kiddo should definitely have an essay or two written by summertime.
Yeah, I would say that we try to focus on at least one main essay and the kind of more usual suspects in terms of, a leadership essay or why do I want to major and what I want to major in, things that almost every school are going to ask. But a lot of times we won't know the supplemental essays until the college applications actually open, and that's not until August 1 for the most part. And so one of the very first things that the application specialist will do with the kids as of August 1 is to go and try to investigate and hunt out all of the supplemental essays. So we have at least a couple of weeks in the summer to be able to work on those. Now, luckily, a lot of those are a lot shorter. So those are usually 200 to 300 words, and that's maybe a paragraph. And so a lot of times those are a little easier. But depending upon, where your student is planning on applying, there could be a lot of supplementals. Like Stanford, for example, has one main essay and 9 supplementals. That's a lot of essays, especially trying to write between, August 1 and August 15 before school starts. And so sometimes some of that actually rolls over into the first semester of senior year. But we want them to get as much done as they can when they have the time and the bandwidth, and try to utilize that time wisely before everything starts getting crazy in late summer, early school.
Thank you. That's helpful.
All right, gang. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. We will send another blastogram out to everybody before next month. It's typically, what is it, the third week, Anne-Marie, in the month that we do this? Pretty sure.
Third Monday, 7 p.m.
Yeah. Sometimes we violate our own rule because of holidays or whatever. This time we didn't. But anyway, we hope you got something out of tonight. If you have other questions for us, you just shout into your students portal, and we'll be there to answer any other questions you might have. Thanks for joining us tonight, gang. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Awesome.
Cool.
It's just us.
You want to stop
We
the
stopped the
recording?
recording. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.